everybody, welcome to McFarland Minutes, our weekly podcast hosted by Natalie McFarland, me, and founder and president of McFarland Productions, and Scout Foster, our outreach marketing manager. In these episodes, you can expect deleted scenes, in-depth campaign reviews, project highlights, marketing concepts, book reviews, and a deep dive into the creative process at Off Your Rocker Films, and of course, invaluable lessons on mentorship, leadership, and the business of it all. We are so excited to be releasing our episodes every Sunday as your soft launch to Monday. Hey everybody, welcome to McFarland Minutes, your soft launch to Monday, episode 30. This is one that we are kind of looking forward to because I think most people should probably be pretty close to being done planning this if you're doing this at the NFR, but it's something that we really feel like was super effective for multiple of our clients. And we like to pitch this for other brands as well, but we wanted to run through a case study about influencer activations related to the NFR. You could apply this to other events as well, but from the Western and Ag space, NFR is certainly the place to do it, right? So Scout really was the one that headed up last year's efforts related to influencer marketing at the NFR and really managed that budget. So this one, Scout's got a bunch of really interesting analytics. We actually talked about this in a recent email marketing piece. I think we have a blog on it too. Is that right, Scout? Yeah. Cool. So anyway, lots of information about this out there, and I know we're talking about this in many ways, but the reason for that is it's darn effective. So we really like the conversion rates on this and the ROI beyond sales. So Scout, will you kick us off with some data points and then we can chat
Absolutely.
about it?
Before I do that though, can you just believe we've done this 30 times?
I know, right? 30 episodes. I mean, we were planning out through the end of the year, which is, look at us. We're going to do a whole nother episode on planning your next year's marketing here pretty shortly. But yeah, we planned out through the end of the year. I was like, man, we're going to be at I don't remember what it was, like episode 50 or something like that by the time we get, maybe it's not quite that high, maybe it's in the 40s, but we're going to be up there by the time we get to January 1st. So anyway, season 2 is going to be a good one.
Yeah.
It's weird that we've been in it this long.
It's crazy to me. If you have any feedback or critiques or something that we can implement for season 2, we would love to hear that because
yeah, for sure. Topics,
we're
guests,
still new
all that.
and just figuring it all out. I've heard that after 100 episodes, you can consider yourself a podcast per Katie's Rock. I don't know if that's like a statistic or Katie's
if that's Katie's standard.
Katie's
got good standards.
She's also a pretty good podcaster, but anyways.
She's a very good podcaster.
Wow, we're almost halfway there. Crazy. Anyways. Almost. Okay, so for the NFR influencer case study, I just pulled a few things from the email that we sent out a couple weeks ago that that will spark conversation. I wrote a few down. I wrote a few objectives down. So if you have more that you think of, I want you to pitch in because this is not necessarily end all be all list. But I think first and foremost, our main goal with the our main objective was to just create authentic storylines that we necessarily as marketers and camera operators and things that we weren't there for. So it is authentic storytelling from an outside audience to boost visibility, grow followers, booth traffic at Cowboy Christmas, and to do some product highlight
and online sales if you're not there.
Sales if you're not there, that's good. Product highlight was kind of a big one for us last year. We wanted to get some UGC styled videos. So that is my objective list. But then for goals, I had increase organic impressions and reach, drive follower growth, showcase products through influencers, and identify long-term influencers, which is actually probably one of the best ones that I've seen this year, post NFR, just because we worked with a bunch of new people in December last year that we have since worked with a bunch of times since the NFR. So it was kind of a good, soft launch, if I need to say that.
Yeah, and I think too, like we did mention, yeah, right. We did mention too that like sales was a big part of this. Obviously, everyone wants to see
Hmm.
conversions off of an influencer, but something that we were talking about before we started recording was that influencer activations ROI goes way beyond just conversion, like direct conversion, right? So there's a brand awareness piece, there's a fandom piece, there's a trust piece, there's a social proof piece. It kind of impacts the full customer journey rather than just the conversion piece. So as we were running through and analyzing, like, how did this campaign really do? Sure, we're focusing a lot of energy on sales directly, like what was our ROI in sales and how did our booth traffic do and that sort of thing. But we're also considering, like, did we gain new followers, right? Which, working with new influencers, certainly going to gain some brand awareness, which should result in some new followers. It's also going to be some engagement things. Engagement is, a really good sign of trust or getting to know a brand, right? So being able to measure engagement was a really big piece of this too. But anyway, it goes beyond sales, I guess
Well,
is
I
what I'm
think
saying.
that's like the first thing that we want to track. You know what I mean? Like, did this work? Let's look at sales. But it's also, did this work is not really always an immediate work. Does that make sense? You know what I mean? Like, you don't always see immediate
Mm-hmm.
results.
Hopefully it's
Mm-hmm.
a long-term
Mm-hmm.
result, right? Like, especially depending on what product you're selling too, right? If you're selling something that's fairly cost effective or fairly low cost from a product perspective, so if you're in that, I don't know, 20 to $100 maybe range, you're probably more likely to see a pretty immediate conversion. As you get into higher end products, the hundreds, the thousands, maybe above that, you certainly aren't going to see the number of conversions very quickly, right? So you need to build more trust with those people to be able to get them to make the investment that you're asking them to make. So trust factor gets more important the more expensive a product is.
I
So,
also think, like, is it the right time? Like, oh, I am introduced to this product.
mhm.
I am going to buy this for so and so at their birthday in 3 months, in 6 months. Are they going to remember
Yes.
you? That's the point. That's the success
Mhm.
marker. If they remember you, if they stuck around for
Mhm.
the next 6 months until it was their time to purchase.
I honestly think that might actually be like a
I think
better
so too.
success marker than like an immediate
Absolutely.
conversion. Like, if I'm thinking into the future and I'm sticking around, I'm more likely to be a long-term fan. So I think that's actually a
I
better success marker than immediate
absolutely. I
conversion.
also think, like, maybe in this day and age too, because I think we're all like kind of one track minded. Like, we have something on our mind today, but we're going to forget about it in 3 hours. Like, how many times have we
Oh
had,
yeah.
like, what did we need to meet? Like, what did we need to meet about? What are we talking about? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. So, social has gotten better about this too, but like, how many times have you clicked an ad and been like, oh, that was cool. And then
and
you
then you
exit
never
out
see
of
it
it. And
again.
then, like, 3 weeks later, yeah, it is a little better. Like, Instagram does track your like
Mhm.
link interactions now. So you can look back at your own like link interaction history and find that. So that's improved over the last little bit. I don't know how long that feature's been up, but probably more than a year, I'm guessing. But that is certainly something that can happen too, is like, can did you do something from a content perspective that left enough of an impression that they can remember who the
Right.
heck you were when they did see it, right?
Yes.
So,
Let's get into the key results. We saw 165% increase in organic impressions in 1 week. That's just how it calculates, but I would say the 1 week would be the like 10 days of the NFR. You and I were talking about,
mhm.
can we count this as organic impressions? Because I was like, well, it is technically paid, but we didn't pay for the spot on the feed. We just paid for the content.
We paid for
Right.
the talent.
But
Yeah.
100, what were you going to say? I feel like you were going to say something else.
Definitely organic traffic as far as it's concerning the app, right? So when we're talking about pay, we're not doing any paid ad spend related to these influencer activations. We are paying the influencer, but we are not paying the app for exposure.
Right. This is authentic exposure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Organic exposure. Okay, so then there was 91% um new accounts, so fresh eyes on our account. So we partnered with a bunch of new influencers. Some of them actually were customers of ours. Um,
Yeah, which I think is super important. Like you want somebody who already likes the brand, or at least a good majority should already be a
Mhm.
fan of the brand. You definitely don't want to pick influencers who are like completely
Sure.
unaware of the brand. I think that you'll have a hard time aligning from like a cultural perspective and from an audience perspective if they're completely unaware of the brand.
Um, that said, we do usually start with people who are already tagging us or are like we just see in our scroll, like, hey, we saw that was, a product of ours, or hey, that looks familiar. Like, is that a XYZ product or something? Um, but I think
Hmm.
a lot of people we find through our own like social monitoring.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, and that's true, like, through an agency. You and I kinda talked about this a little bit too, as an agency, we're exposed to a very wide audience of people for because we are basically compounding our
Hmm.
own audience with our clients' audiences, right? So as we're managing social or influencers or email marketing, whatever it is, right? As we're interacting as a representative of any given brand, the agency becomes sort of this vehicle for network and connections. One of the great things about that is being able to bring in some of these people that like we either learned through social scroll or learned through working with a different brand that maybe they would fit in the brand that we're working on at the moment for that particular activation. So we're able to kind of bring in a larger network of people that maybe the brand wouldn't otherwise have access to on its own. The other thing too that you mentioned, and I'm kind of taking us off track here for a second, so we can go back to this. But the other thing too that you had mentioned before we got on the call was about connections through connections, and that's through influencers. Do you want to talk just briefly about like um, almost like brand collaborations happening, either to share influencers or to like learn about new
Yeah, so I
influencers?
think that one of the best, like, I don't know. I think one of the best things about working with an agency is that we work with so many different influencers that if we find um, a need for those influencers elsewhere, we can pull them into a different client. So, client one has a list of influencers, client two has a list of influencers. Sometimes they do cross. Sometimes we can work with the same influencers on different clients, but we also can partner with other brands that we don't work with, um, and kind of do like a little bit of like a influencer swap. Um,
Yeah, for sure. A lot of times our influencers become a
yes.
connection point to another brand who then becomes a
Hmm.
friend of the current brand that we're working on, friend of ours too. And then their influencers become our influencers, and then we're just like further
And then
sharing the
we also
network.
have a brand connection. If also
Yeah.
kind of nice for like product shoots and stuff if it fits. If it fits, it ships.
For sure. Yeah, for
Anyway,
sure.
something else that I do think is nice on kind of on like the relationship connection building topic, we had 1.8 million views on a reel that was shared outside of what we paid for, like outside of the contract um, scope. Um, I truly, okay, so I think there's a lot of reasons for why that was done. Like, I think number one, when you have a good product, people are happy to share about it. Number two, when you're good to work with, people are happy to go above and beyond. But I guess kind of on that note too, like when you work with the same person every single time, you build a relationship with them further than what like the contract is. I truly feel like people go above and beyond for those personal connections made as we're working on like that contract. Like as I'm talking to you
Mm-hmm.
about what products you like, what you do for a living, how you're gonna like what the deliverables are. Um, like life gets in
The
there. You know what I mean?
relationship.
Like personality seeps in.
Yeah, the relationship piece is so
Mm-hmm.
critical, so
Mm-hmm.
critical. And like, if you want a really effective influencer, don't treat them like you're just trading some money with
Absolutely.
them and sending some product, and that's the
Absolutely.
end of it. Like, really making effective influencer marketing campaigns is when you get to know each other, you see value in each other, and quite frankly, you make a work relationship, a work friendship between the two of you, and they really start to fully understand the goals of the brand. They're going to make better content, they're more likely to interact with you later on, and you're probably going to be a lot happier with them as a brand. So, um, you're basically creating real connections, right? This is creating community. This is right at the core of what we love to talk about. But you're creating community as the agency for your client, as you know, the apparel brand or whatever the brand is, and the influencer who, you know, also feels very connected. So creating those real relationships where there's a two-way fan type relationship, that's how you're going to get the best bang for your buck from an influencer
Absolutely. I
perspective.
just think that overall, building these relationships internally also shows in the work that the influencers do. That is building a
Oh,
relationship
yeah,
with their
absolutely.
followers, that is then taking their followers to like it's a full circle. Does that make sense? Are you
Mm-hmm.
following my circle of
Mm-hmm.
influencing?
The
Mm-hmm.
circle of influence. Yeah, now we're starting to sound like John Maxwell or something.
Something like that. Is that what he says? Circle of influence? One of
It's
his
it's like
things.
one of his laws is something like
Mm,
some type of wording
wow.
that's pretty similar, but
Just
yeah. Good book, 21 Irrefutable Laws of
pat
Leadership, in
yourself on the
case you want to
back,
read
girlfriend,
that
you
one.
know?
I think one other thing to note about what we're doing when we're like trying to come up with the best way to spend a budget, right? No matter what the budget is, 5,000, 10,000, 20,000, whatever the budget is for influencers related to an event for a particular brand, we're always looking to like cross the spectrum of the types of people that we're utilizing, and that typically means the cost associated with each one of them, right? So we're going to have some that have 1 million+ followers, and we're going to have some that have 1,000 followers, right? So we're going to do a very big spread. What we're looking for is the right people for the brand, right? So we'll utilize, you know, people that maybe wouldn't consider themselves influencers, but they are certainly an influence on the industry. So we'll use personalities that are very prominent within that particular events space, right? So, you know, the NFR will try to use some stock contractors or photographers or whatever that are associated with the PRCA and associated with the NFR. You know, we'll obviously athletes are a big part of that as well. But there's you know, a lot of people out there who are well followed, they're well liked, they're well known in the industry, but maybe their Instagram isn't like, you know, 1 million+ followers. They are not your traditional influencer. They almost, to me, have just as much or more value than some of the people who have 1 million+ followers, right? Because you're putting yourself in spaces of real trust. And we're selecting those people that really do trust the brand, right? You also talked about customers. Customers are a huge one, right? Like, I want to take some of our customer affiliates that we've created and turn them into influencers too. Sometimes, side note, this stuff is coming to us as UGC, right? Like maybe they don't manage their own social or whatever, but UGC is still just as effective in my opinion. Certainly the collaborative approach, particularly when you're talking about audience compounding between like a person with 1 million followers in your account, certainly the audience compounds a lot better when you're collaborating, but there's still so much value in that true UGC as well. We typically work with some mid-range, right? So some more like, I don't know, under 10,000 followers. And then we'll work with like one, maybe two of those very large influencers. What are you seeing, Scout, from like a conversion perspective and like numbers perspective? Either like, I'm not even just saying ROI, like direct sales conversion, but like from a engaged following from a, I guess, a trust factor with influencers across the board?
So I think to best answer your question, I need to break it up into how many followers these influencers have. So I think on those like high number of followers, like let's say they have 1 million followers, they have 500,000 followers. Um, those are like great for gaining following. So I think across the board when we work with people like that, the our biggest like win is how much we grew in following. I don't think that those people are always our best engagers or like interactors, but I think that we grow a lot. Like we have a that opens us up to like a very large new audience. Would win.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
It gives us a very
mhm,
large opportunity to earn
yes.
trust, I feel
I
like.
think when you scale down followers a little bit, so that now we're talking like in the 20,000s, that I have seen that's kind of like the best of both worlds to me. Like I think we see a good number of new followers there, but we also still get like that's like a sweet spot with engagement as well. I also think that a lot of times as people like those influencers are running their own account, so they are likely to engage with your account, if that makes sense. There's less of like I don't know, like loss of the phone or the telephone game and like how many people it goes through like
Mm-hmm. Loss
yes,
in
yes, thank you.
translation, yeah.
Um, and then we also work with people who have like 10,000 or less. Like we have affiliates that have like 4,000 followers. Um, I
Mm-hmm.
love working with them because it is so authentic. Like it is so authentically them. Like they
Mm-hmm.
are not the most professionally like outspoken people. Not that they're not professional. They're
They're
not.
not so they're not so polished in the presentation. They're just very
Yes, but
real.
like that's what sells. You know what I mean? Like people
Yeah.
follow them because they like them or because they know them or like they know them on a personal level and they are likely to buy because a friend recommended it.
Yes, it's very much more like your friend recommended it. I think like sometimes, and this isn't always true, but sometimes with the extremely large followings, people can be like, "Oh, you're just pushing that product
Clickbait.
because
Yeah.
he's getting paid to," right? And the influencers who are doing it very well aren't
Mhm.
getting that often, but they are going to
Mhm.
get it some because they're a giant following and those people don't have an actual real
Mhm.
personal connection with that influencer. But a lot of times, if you're looking at like even the 1,000 follower like influencers or affiliates that you're using as an influencer, right, or a UGC person, a lot of times you're getting people who like they really do know most of those 1,000 people, at least at some level, right? So yeah, I think you have like a very direct personal interaction with their followers that's very real. It
Right.
does feel
I
like a
think
friend.
maybe this like will help answer your question, but I think like a successful campaign has all of those. So you get like the followers
Mm-hmm.
and the new audience from the larger one. You get the engagement from like the smaller ones. You build the trust with, like the micro. Nano, micro, nano,
Mm-hmm.
and macro, I think are the names, but I get them. I think nano's the middle. Or is nano the small one? I don't know
I
either.
don't
I
know.
get them all confused. There's too many names. Anyways, I think a successful campaign
I
has
also
all of them.
I also feel like it depends on who you
It
ask what
probably
the
does.
name of that.
I think that we should maybe walk people through what we think a successful campaign budget wise and deliverable wise might be, like what it might look like. So could you maybe give me like a budget to work with?
Sure. Um, I think I'm also going to give you a baseline of like what it is. So let's stick with the NFR
Okay.
since we've been talking about that. So they also have a booth at
Mm-hmm.
Cowboy Christmas, right? Location and booth
Mm-hmm.
are important. And I'm going to say they've got like a $10,000 budget to
Okay.
spend on influencers, not including management.
Also, what is like product allotment? Like, is that included in the 10 or is that like
Mm,
completely separate?
yeah, let's say that product seating is included in that 10, so you need to calculate it into your influencer amount. and then, or like your
Mm-hmm.
contract amounts for your influencers. And then also, let's just stick in apparel. I think apparel is, pretty like heavy
Sure.
at Cowboy Christmas. So there's lots of examples for
Okay,
that.
so $10,000 is a good budget, by the way. So if you're out there and you're not really
Hmm.
sure exactly what your budget should be, I do think 10 is a pretty, you can do a lot with $10,000 in the influencer world.
You have a lot
Mm-hmm.
of wiggle room. $5,000, you can
Mm-hmm.
certainly get it done, right? Like, I think you can make an
Mm-hmm.
impact at 5,000. I probably wouldn't recommend
Yeah,
below that.
absolutely.
But 10's like a budget you can really do some
I
damage
agree.
with.
So, mm, hmm, I think if I was starting out at 10, reach out to your influencers with the most followers first. They are likely to be your most
Hmm.
expensive. So I would get them in the budget right off the bat just because you can they're also probably less likely to negotiate with you. Sometimes they do, but I
Hmm.
think a lot of times like
They're
they
usually pretty
are
structured in their
right. They
payment.
have like their rates mapped out with their deliverables. It also will probably be the quickest because they do this for a living and
Hmm.
they are structured and they have it ready to send to you. So I would start out with your largest spend first. I would I think I would allot maybe like 4,000 out of your 10,000 to those higher like larger influencers. Now, if you could split that up and have like 2,000 and 2,000, and like have two large influencers, or you could combine them and have like one very large influencer,
One
maybe
very
like
large, yeah.
Endorsey level. It again, it just
Hmm.
like kind of depends who it is and what their rate is. Also, will depend how much the products are. So,
It'll also depend on the
right.
deliverables too, right? So, if you like something that we do frequently is if we're working with an influencer, particularly ones that are a higher cost, right? We'll look at the deliverables and decide, okay, does this really fit what I'm asking for? And maybe it's
Mm-hmm.
too much, right? Maybe it's more
Mm-hmm.
than what we want or what we need. And oftentimes we'll work with them. Some of them will negotiate with you. Some of them are like, this is what I do, and that's the end of it. If it doesn't fit in the budget, then you don't work with them that time, right? Doesn't mean it doesn't work out in the
Right.
future, but that time maybe they're not a fit. But I certainly wouldn't be afraid to go back and say, like, okay, thank you for this. This is a great baseline. Let's see if we can massage the
Yes.
deliverables into something that makes more sense for my brand. And then what is the cost related to those deliverables, right? So you can negotiate, but like be aware, like don't just be like, could you do the same deliverables, but like for half the cost? That's not going to work. You're going to have to go negotiate on what the deliverables are, and like the frequency
You
and
can
all of that
also
as well. So
negotiate and leverage maybe like store credit or something.
yeah, store credit. You could maybe do like a
Mm-hmm.
commission based on meeting particular
Mm-hmm.
um, sales levels, like particular like sales goals. If they meet X number of dollars for their influencer activation, they get, an extra $100 or something like that. You could almost structure it like I kind of start to think about it when we start to work with the really professional influencers that do this for a living and have really large followings. I start to think of it a little bit like a sales rep, right? Like, how would you structure a sales rep position from like a payment perspective? And typically that's a reward for amount of sales, right? So if you can think about like, how can I get creative and get this person closer to the money that they're asking for, but also like protect the brand a little bit from an exposure perspective? Because if you're getting an ROI, which again, influencers sales are not the only ROI, but if you're getting an ROI, when we're talking specifically about sales, if you're hitting a specific number, I'd be darn happy to pay a little bit extra bonus,
Right.
right? Because if we're hitting that sales number, I've already calculated, oh yeah, that's worth X number of dollars to me, right? Or to the brand. So you can do some of those creative structures. Some brands will also do like, they'll do a lower fixed rate, but they'll do a percentage on top, like a commission percentage. That's not for every brand. I think that's completely dependent on how your margin structure and things like that works for your products, and you're going to have to analyze that yourself. But we do see that frequently where it's a lower flat rate with a higher commission structure, or with a commission structure at all, on sales, in which case you're typically doing like an affiliate link or something like that that's tracking sales through their link. There's a number of ways to kind of get creative on that, that allow you to kind of negotiate your way into these million plus followers. What version of that fits the brand that you're working on, or for your brand specifically? That's something that you're going to kind of have an internal discussion about, of the types of agreements that you're willing to take.
So as you were talking, which was all very good information, I was mapping out how I would spend the money with like numbers of people at which level. Okay, so
Cool.
I think what I came up with, and like the lower ones, I could be swayed to maybe do something a little bit different with, but in my brain, the best way to get like the most bang for your buck would be to spend $4,000 on the big influencers. I would break that into 2,000 each and have two big influencers. That's 4,000 of your budget. I would jump down in follower size. A lot of times you can jump down in follower size, but up in deliverables for a less less expensive rate. So I would have three middle influencers at 1,500 each. Again, you can probably up the deliverables. It's just going to be like a different setup there. I then would do one small influencer at $500, and then you could do four tiny influencers at 250 each. And I think my idea on the tiny would be more so like getting that UGC in. So like these could be customers that don't necessarily run their influencing business as like a full-time business, but they do it more as like a side hustle. They're just getting started. They have great content, but they're not paying their bills with this. A lot of times this could also be employee generated content. So if your employees wanted to make some deliverables, you can throw them like a 250 stipend, or, like whatever you wanted to call it.
Yeah, I kind of look at that as more like, there's maybe it's like a stock contractor who is not an influencer, right? But they're well known in the space. They're very active in the event. There's lots of good things about them, and they legitimately use the products, right? Maybe you give them a $250 stipend to use their likeness, right? Where they're not really influencing, but you're just trying to pay them back for a little bit of that love that you're able to create
A
on
lot of people
social.
who are just starting out too will do it for higher store credit or like product credit. They also will do it for the collaboration on Instagram. So then their product or like their profile, their Instagram account is also like benefiting from having a larger brand work with him. Again, this is going to be like it's going to vary based on who you're talking to and what like their usual setup is, but you could do like two tiny people for $500 instead of 1,000, and do another small person at 500. It just kind of like that's kind of something that you can like.
Yeah.
I love to do like the little like, moving money around and like how best I can, I don't know, like make the dollars work, but like how I can get the most out of those dollars. I also do think something that products are very negotiable. So I usually start with people saying like, we'll send you 3 products. If they come back and they're like, well, I actually would like a full outfit, so like, can we do 5 products? Or I don't know, 4, whatever. That's something that you can either just choose to like approve, or you can also negotiate down so you free up some of those dollars to move somebody else in.
Yeah, I think too, like sometimes you can get a little creative with some of these people too, where you're like
Mhm.
sharing an
Mhm.
influencer, right, for a day with another brand or something like that. The other thing to think about is whether or not that brand has an endorsee team
Mhm.
associated with like the NFR, right? Do they have an athlete team? And how can I utilize them? What's currently in their endorsement contract or their sponsorship contract? And maybe it's that I throw them a little bit more to do a little bit more, right? Maybe they're coming by the booth or whatever the thing is, right? Utilize that as a resource as well. Sometimes it's no extra money from what your already agreement is from like a sponsorship perspective. Sometimes you need to throw them a little bit, but it can be like a pretty minor budget because you typically already have an ongoing relationship with that person. So you can utilize teams to if the brand that you're working with or your brand has them.
Absolutely. Something else you can also consider is taking the $1,000 from like the four tiny people and going even further with like product spend.
Mm-hmm. The other thing you could think about doing too is don't necessarily always make every single activation a booth visit, right? Like especially with apparel, like they can wear apparel anywhere all over Vegas for the whole week, right? So typically what we encourage is more of like a POV type engagement, right? So there's typically one, maybe two reels that they're doing for the day or a post and a reel or something like that. But really, the stories are kind of gold, right? Because you're getting to see Vegas, the experience of Vegas, through somebody else's eyes. Whether they're going to, a VIP party or they're going to the perf that night or they go to the go around buckle ceremony and stay for the concert or they go to to breakfast at one of the major hotels when it's a lot of those are really beautiful bistro style. I'm trying to think of the one that we go to all the time that's absolutely gorgeous, but um anyway, allow them to do like a day in the life sort of situation is kind of one way to set it up from like a deliverables perspective. So maybe it's not all posts, all booth visits. Obviously, we would like you to stop by the booth at some point that day, but there's at South Point Hotel Casino, there's those shoe shines, right? Like I've seen great content made at a shoe shine. So those like day in the life sort of like experience Vegas. Number one, I think it gives people who aren't there a little bit of FOMO. And number two, I think it's very relatable, right? Like everybody's used to like jumping in the Uber or the tram or like struggles of, or the cool experience of the Tesla tunnel or whatever it is, right? So I think that you can get like a Vegas experience and someone's going to be able to
I also
relate to it.
think when you hire influencers, hire people, you do not have to give them step-by-step instructions of what you want. You should hire them for what
Oh,
they do, like what their style is, because
mm-hmm.
that's why people follow them because they're relatable. So the second that
Mm-hmm.
you have,
They know their audience
yes,
better than you do.
the second that you put too many like stipulations on what they can and cannot do, or like never will I ever be like, I need a full creative brief. I want to see something. I do ask for like ideas and like a
a,
general,
a general
yes, but I will
plan.
like, well, I shouldn't say I will never ask for that. I guess if we were working with a client who wanted that, I would ask for one. But I do, I think you and I both, like, we do try to steer clients away from like, well, I want to know what they're doing. I want to see it ahead of time. I want to approve it before they post it. I'm not saying we've never done that before, but I do think 9 out of 10 times it goes,
It goes better
yeah.
when you don't.
I also know that it goes
Yeah,
better when you
totally.
don't because we
Totally goes
have
better
done
when
it
you don't.
the other way before. You know what I mean? Like we,
Yeah. Yeah, I think it loses who they
right.
are in it.
It feels
When
rehearsed.
you're too worried about hitting
Yeah.
all the rules. Yeah, when you're too worried about hitting all the rules, like all your normal
Mm-hmm.
creativity
Mm-hmm.
kind of goes out the window. So like they know their followers. Their followers are there for their personality, right? Let them be the creative person that they are. Now, there are parameters, right? Like some brands do not want you to show competitive brands in there. Okay, that's a fine rule to give them, right? Like don't wear my brand and brand X at the same time, right? You could do things like make sure common spelling mistake of your brand, like lay those out for them. Give them some brand standards. Maybe you don't want them showing alcohol in it. Like you can't, for whatever reason, show alcohol for your particular brand, or it's against your particular brand's set of values, core values. So like, I think that there's a number of things like that where you can give them parameters, right? Or if your brand particularly, loves rough stock over like roping events or vice versa, right? You can give them some of those parameters, but try to do it as like a brand standard, not as a creative
Yeah.
control.
I agree. Obviously, we came up with these ideas together. That was really
Look
smart.
at us agreeing.
Wow.
So what are let's like flip the switch, right? Some people on this podcast might be influencers looking to work with brands for the NFR. What are like top 3 in less than 5 minutes things that you feel like influencers should consider when they're looking for brands to work with at the NFR?
I think number one is like, do you own this product and do you love this product? Or I guess it could also be a service too. But to me, like Cowboy Christmas is more product retail driven. So, and it could also be a
Sure.
service, but I feel like right now product fits. Um, if you don't, why do you feel like you're the guy for the thing? Like, why do you know what I mean? So like, I think you need to figure that
Mm-hmm.
out first because I'm going to ask, like, what's your
Mm-hmm.
audience like? What are we like? What's your idea? What is your idea here? Like, I'm going to ask you that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Have an idea too.
If you do not have an idea, I am automatically going to assume that you just want free stuff. And I'm probably not just gonna,
Mm-hmm.
unless you have a leg to stand on it, that's not gonna work. Um, I also think have this might kind of go with number one, but like have a media kit ready. Like I want to see some structure and we can figure out rates and deliverables based on the structure that you have. Um, if you,
Give me a
yes.
starting point.
Now, that is different for if I reach out to you as like, hey, I have seen your, like your post. I would like to offer like 250 and some products or,
Mm-hmm.
150 and $100 product. Um, but I think mostly if you're an influencer listening to this, please have a very, it doesn't have to be extravagant, but like it should be a nice representation of you and have some analytics on there. Show who your audience is. Maybe show past. It doesn't have to be past work, but maybe like people you've worked with. Um, maybe links. I love when people do that, like links to videos or styled shoots or something they've done. Um, those are like my two biggest like things that will make me want to put my head through a wall if people don't have. I'm trying to think of something else that is less violent than that. I don't know. Do you have anything that I've thought of
Yeah,
or
I
that
mean,
like
I
we've
think
talked about that I am not thinking of right now?
No, I think like the media kit, my most important thing there is like I want to understand if your audience and my audience have some commonality, right? Not
Mm-hmm.
necessarily overlap, but commonality. Do we meet on common ground and do we have similar audiences, or do you meet one of my marketing
Right.
pillars, right? Like, are you maybe one that I don't hit very well right now, but man, I'm really trying to expand to that space, right? I need to understand what your audience is in order to know if it's a fit for the brand. So I would say like spend some
Mm-hmm.
extra time on information about
I
your
think also
audience.
maybe one is like it's okay to say no or like not right now or um my rates are like this is out of budget for us is like that goes both ways. Like I think it's okay to be like, hey, we're just not going to come to common ground on this. Like your rate is too high. We can't go that way. Like here's what we can offer you. And if
Yeah.
you cannot accept that, like I fully understand and respect that. Like this is the best we can offer. Um,
Yeah. Typically, brands are like setting up the X dollars that they want to spend at NFR, like the total dollars they want to spend before
mm-hmm,
they've called you, right? Or before
mm-hmm,
you've even called them, right? So if I have a $5,000 budget and you quote me 4,000, it's probably going to be like a, hey, can we work on
mm-hmm.
deliverables to narrow this down? Because I can't justify 4,000 of my
Right,
$5,000 budget
right.
on one person. So, like, that happens often. And the reality is it's nothing against your rates. Like 4,000 would be fine if we were in a 10 or 15 or 20,000 budget, but not so fine when you're in a $5,000 budget. So it's really just dependent on the brand's like
Sure.
established budget for that year. It can also be that like next year it could
Right.
work, right? Because there's a
Mm-hmm.
larger budget or whatever. So don't feel like because it doesn't work this year or because you had to negotiate on deliverables and change it, don't feel like that's the end of the
Mm-hmm.
road for either
I
side,
agree.
really.
Yes, that. There's a lot of people actually that we will circle
Cool.
back with. Like, hey, I
Oh
don't have
yeah,
that
for
right now, or
sure.
like, hey, our goals have changed, or like our budget has changed, or a lot of changes happen
Hmm.
in marketing.
Sure. Or I've got a product that
Mm-hmm.
fits your audience
Mm-hmm.
better now, right? Like that
Right.
that could be true too. Like if you're this is kind of jumping outside of like an NFR activation, but if you're like from Alaska, right? And I don't have any like wickedly warm products, or you're going to the Iditarod, right? I don't have any like wickedly warm products that would fit that scenario. I might next year,
Or
you
if you're
know?
going on a trip
So
to,
like,
you know, if your schedule changes and you end up going on a trip somewhere else, we might have something that fits that.
sure. Yeah. Yeah, it's all like product scenario driven. It's
Mm-hmm.
your audience versus my goals region like driven. Like there's so many factors that go into choices on influencers. A no to an influencer or an influencer to a brand is not necessarily a
Mm-hmm.
no forever. It's a no
Mm-hmm.
for the situation. So, for whatever reason that is. But cool. Well, any last thoughts on influencer activations, particularly as it results or as it applies to the NFR?
You should have them. That's it.
You should have,
Yeah, that was it.
period.
Just period. You should definitely consider having influencers for your NFR marketing success.
Cool. Awesome. Well, I think that's a wrap on episode 30, influencer marketing as it applies to the NFR. We'll see you next time.